You're watching Inside iOS Dev, your favorite show about real-world iOS development.
Okay, guys, so today it's going to be a very raw, almost unfiltered, almost unedited video of our reaction, me and Sandeep reacting to Platform State of the Union, that WWDC 2022 that Apple, I think at this point, came up with 2 weeks ago-ish. So we're going to be going through the video and covering what piqued our interest and commenting on it. Some of it might be right and correct. Some of it might be completely wrong and incorrect. So bear with us. It's just an opinion, and some of this is not going to be very well researched, and maybe even just emotional reaction from me usually. But we'll dive into those specific parts that we either didn't cover well or didn't know much about as of today, as of like reaction, quick live covering all of it. But other than that, enjoy it. We'll go through most of it.
Concurrency. Upgrades to make Swift code easier to read and write. Tooling to help you customize your workflow, and amazing under-the-hood improvements. It started last year with the introduction of Swift Concurrency. Swift Concurrency dramatically simplified reading and writing code that runs in parallel, and has been a huge hit, with more than 40,000 apps in the App Store adopting it in just the first year. Because it's such a fundamental and important improvement to your app's codebase, it's now possible to deploy code with Swift Concurrency to all operating systems released in the last 3 years. Swift Concurrency also introduced async sequences. This year, there's a new open source package that brings concurrency to Swift's rich set of existing sequence algorithms. It's called async algorithms. For example, where Swift's sequence protocol supports a zip algorithm to combine two sequences, async algorithms brings a version for zipping together two asynchronous sequences. Because async sequences are integrated directly into the Swift language, they use familiar constructs like for loops that, thanks to the async await syntax, look like regular straight-line code. You're also able to use the familiar try-catch pattern to handle things like network failures from asynchronous data streaming over the network.
So here, though, like, look, this is a syntactic sugar. Even though he says this async await thing is built into the language, which it is, the way it works in other languages, like C#, I believe, and, well, maybe in JavaScript, and probably likely how it works in here too, it's a syntactic sugar, and under the hood, it's using like promises. Well, in this case, Swift doesn't have promises built in. Probably some combined thing with creating like an observable sequence or observable object is what's happening under the hood when you like when you put the async await in your functions, right? I suppose this is cool, but like such an exaggerated example. Where would you ever have two asynchronously callback coming numbers and letters like as results that you need to then zip, which is like wait for at least one result here to show up and one result here to show up, then this thing emits, right? But then all of that happens asynchronously. So you asynchronously wait for this one result, asynchronously wait for this first result. Then you asynchronously execute and run this, right? And iteration of the for loop. But then since it's all like way more error prone, now all of a sudden they introduced the do catch with a try, right? Which we never had to do before. Well, almost. Well, actually, never. In my experience as an iOS dev. All right. Never. One time I did it, right?
I would like to disagree here because I have a use case here. So in one of my projects, what happened was there we have to fetch some data, let's say some people's data. So that people's data was not just coming from one table, but from a group of tables. Okay, so one table was returning the names of the people and the other table was returning the count. Let's assume that the count was the number of friends of each one of them. So the API we initially requested to our server guys was to just give the whole data in the same API. But there was some constraints at their end. They were saying that if we do that, it will take so much amount of time and so much amount of data processing at their end to do that stuff all at once, because they will have to combine both the tables and then they have to return the data on that.
Mhm. So they made you do 2 network
Yeah,
requests.
they made
Oh
it
my
2
God.
APIs, and by seeing this use case, I just realized I could have handled it so easily using this. Otherwise, I would have handled it like using 2 requests, and I was trying to synchronize them using dispatch queues.
Well, wait. Well, yeah, that's one option, right? But you could also wait for one request to finish and wait for another request to finish and then loop through it. It will not make much of a difference in that particular scenario. I know what you mean. I had that a couple of times too, when backend people couldn't like give you a good API, right? It's like, of course, this is an exaggerate. Well, this is a too simplified example, but even in your case, probably there would be no harm in like waiting. You still have to. This is not a stream of data here, right? Those 2 things. Let's pretend this is what was one of your in your example, one of your network requests, number 1, and this is a network result of the network request number 2. They're not continuous streams of data, really, right? They will finish fully first before you even get this result. So there is no need for then like asynchronously, as soon as possible, processing each individual one of those items in each one of those sequences, because you won't get it like that. Unless those are socket connections, right? Then sure, then this is warranted. But then how many people make that? Well, probably only people who make WhatsApp and similar messaging apps, right?
So what about the case when we are just paginating the data? Like in that case, we need to continuously zip the data.
Yeah, and for each page, you will have a new execution of this. Again, you don't need to like do any of it. But I guess another sort of beef that I have now, it's introducing try catch and all of that stuff, which was previously handled with callback blocks, right? At the point where you receive network result of either one of those requests. That's arguable, I suppose. Some languages approach like try catch is the way to go for handling errors, even network. Historically, for us, for iOS, it was all blocks and closures, right? And that's how we would do it. I think if you use Rx Swift or combine, you also kind of have like that error and on-complete blocks to take care of it. So you also like do catches. I don't know. Not a fan. I guess I'm being a hater right now, but not like for what I do, I don't need it. I think I can accomplish it different ways and have more control, I suppose. Because here is also, when does this start to execute? Like at what point, what triggers it? It's not clear.
A key thing about async sequences is how they deliver data values over time. Swift now includes a new set of clock types for representing time units, and async algorithms builds on them to provide many time-based algorithms, like Throttle here, which can help slow down updates from a sequence.
Okay, so this looks like a normal Rx Swift observable throttle. I had to build it the other day.
Right.
The search entry, right? You have the user type in the search box, and that's the stream of events of characters entered. And then you want to perform search in each one of, well, you think you want to perform it on each one of them, but you want to throttle it for at least some time if the user types super fast, right?
But was it not already available from Combine?
I know, right? Like, or if it wasn't, then I think the Combine framework wasn't ready for production. People, why did you release it? This is such a basic function, right? For any reactive framework.
Yes, exactly.
And then you also, after that, in the case of search, you wanna, I forgot what it's called. Not take until, but they basically like cancel the requests if a new one comes through, new event comes through before the network request finished or something.
Right.
But, okay, well, I guess cool. Thanks, Apple.
Swift's concurrency model is designed to make asynchronous code as easy and safe to write as your synchronous code. A big part of that is Swift's actor model. Actors allow you to isolate your data using thread-safe, concurrently executing code. Swift prevents you from accidentally sharing that state between parallel threads, defining away a major source of bugs. Communication between actors is easy and efficient through async await. Now Swift takes the idea of actor isolation further with distributed actors. Distributed actors can communicate across multiple processes or devices. The distributed keyword marks those actors and methods that can be accessed remotely, whether that's between separate processes on your Mac, peer-to-peer between different devices, or from a device talking to your backend written with Swift on server.
Okay, so this, I think we talked about it before. I don't get the idea of actors. Like, why the hell would you need it in your app? Like, at least if you're just making one app and it's an iOS one, and you're diligent about your structure in your objects and what's performing requests and how you update stuff and update data. But this, I suppose, in this particular case, perhaps there needs to be something to help you with race conditions and other concurrency issues. I've heard of some applications. There is this OmniFocus to-do app. What they do, they don't really have like a typical centralized server model where you sync your to-dos from your phone or your Mac app, because they have both iOS and Mac app, to the server, and then that's how it gets distributed down to another device. Or they have something like that, but it's more like a document model. And every time you make a change on your iPhone or your Mac app, if either one of them is nearby, like you're on the same network, I think they do. There was some technology that Apple has had for years to like, not bonjour.
Multi-peer connectivity, I guess.
Yeah, or something like that. Basically, those changes, they would broadcast to your other device that's running that app, and will pick it up and like update its document for your to-dos, or a database for the to-dos. It's pretty cool. It's very like, it's well done. They've been perfecting it for years, and it's just so blazingly fast and nice to sync everything. So I guess for scenarios like that, maybe you need it. Like, again, for what majority of iOS devs do, building like social networking app, or I don't know, e-commerce app, or heck, to-do app. Why do you care? You're not gonna have multiple processes going on. You have one app process. When you launch your application, even if it's in the background, the system will wake you up, right? And your app delegate gets called. And then one of the callbacks in it, I believe, right, Sandeep, for background execution is called, and you can do your network requests. Like, you don't care about this stuff. Don't get it. What are your thoughts?
I don't have any clue about this distributed actor thing, but one thing that fantasizes me is about in this video they have also said that distributed actor can also be utilized if the server is also written in Swift.
Yeah, so, that could be for that too, right?
Yeah.
Maybe. Is that I mean, I've done some Vapor, a little bit of like playing with Vapor framework for like server-side Swift. It used Neo library. I think that's the name for like this event handling and mini Swift server library. But I guess it could be that like some connection establishing a connection there works for that. But it's gonna go over HTTP or similar protocol anyway. At the end of the day, they definitely didn't reinvent that, right? So
Right.
it doesn't matter in what language your backend app is written. That's kind of the beauty of the backend. You can make it in anything and rewrite it in anything.
Right.
Don't know, and don't care. As of right now, I don't have a problem that this solves. And I think most iOS devs will not have it either. I've seen in some of their sample code, though, that they start using the actor for like the view model that your Swift UI is using or something. But again, still don't get why do what, huh? Oh, well, all right, let's continue.
Or from a device talking to your backend written with Swift on server. Just as actors help Swift protect your state data from race conditions, distributed actors help Swift make them available outside your process, using a pluggable transport mechanism. The Swift compiler can then perform checks that help guarantee correct behavior in a distributed environment, allowing you to get back to working on the features that you care about. Distributed actors and other concurrency features show just how easy Swift code can be to read and write when enhancements are crafted deep within the syntax. To tell you more about usability enhancements in Swift, here's Ken.
Strings are one of the most important features of any programming language, but dealing with strings can be a common source of frustration. At some point in the developer's journey, they may find themselves needing to extract information from a string like this. Writing code to parse this string is easy to get wrong with many details to track. Unlock the power of Swift's type system when you're extracting information with a regular expression, and they take full advantage of Swift's best-in-class Unicode support. Let's take a look. Now I'm working on an app called Food Truck that organizes everything from taking orders to tracking sales. And some orders come in as strings, packed with data. Now, regular expressions are perfect for extracting the details I want, and there's no better place to experiment with them than here in a playground. I'll start by creating a regex literal. And now I'll type the expression and pull out who made the order, the donut type, and the number of donuts. Now, as I type, the regex is syntax highlighted, which helps me confirm my expression is correct. Well, now I'll try it out. Use the order string from above and look for the first match of the regex. Now, when I run the playground, I can see with the inline result exactly what parts of the order string the regex matches.
Okay, so this is awesome. The highlighting over here. I think.
But the support was already there using an S regular expression for so long, right?
Yes, I think it didn't have the compiler generics. So I believe, I think this is done with generics, and this is probably some sort of a generic result that this thing gets. And then this first match is also generic based on the type within the regex. Because every time you declare this thing, your result type is now different, right? Because one time you have one variable, another time you have 2, 3, or more, right? And I think let's play a little more. I think they do that later.
And here, it's finding just what I was looking for. Swift's new regex support doesn't stop here. As literals become more complex, like this one that matches parts of a log file, Swift offers an even better way to craft these patterns. Regex builders. And it's...
Or maybe that's the builders. Okay. So what I was hoping he'll show, after you get this result, the type of the result will allow you to access first variable, second variable, and third variable. If you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Because this type over here was inferred like compile time, right? That it has 3, if that makes sense. All right. Well, let's see what happens.
Easy to convert a literal to a builder.
Oh God, this makes me cringe though.
Wait, I don't think that type was inferred at compile time, because Regex just mentions that that there will be a string of these many characters, or this new, or it will be a numeric type.
Maybe
I don't
not.
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
But this is cool. See, the regex, it has simplified that complex regex, right?
Yeah. Yeah. This is definitely compile safe, as you like. These are types, right, for you to declare. But look how ugly it looks, though. This is the nested hell. I think this is probably what's going to be called, not the callback hell, but the nested hell of Swift UI. So similar, right? It's like, yeah.
So what do you find better, this one or the already complex regex?
Oh no, this is of course better. Yeah, arguably. Like you're right. Unarguably rather. This is better. It just I suppose you could extract a class out of this, right? And call it like capture regex. I don't know, whatever your. Oh, okay. So he has library address. So 2. Library expression, I suppose, would be your this first part, and you could. I hope you can extract it in a class and wrap it, and then this would be the address expression or something of this, and then your thing becomes a 2-liner, maybe.
Yeah, but it is more readable, and if you want to,
it is more readable, yeah.
Debug something in future for your regex, I guess this will be very handy.
Yeah, I think you're right, or at least reading it. Don't know how debugging happens necessarily. Okay, let's see.
Now I have code, and that makes it easier to read and change. I can simplify this one even more. Here, where I'm looking for a hex digit, I'll use the new hex digit character class, helping make my intent even clearer. Now, the builder syntax makes it so much easier for me to create and extend my expressions and get the results I'm looking for. And that's the powerful new developer experience around regular expressions in Swift.
Just as important as the features built into the Swift language are the tools built around it. The Swift Package Manager makes it easy to manage your app's dependencies and take advantage of the fantastic packages published by developers around the world. To date, those developers have published thousands of Swift packages, providing code to help with everything from authentication and web services to data management and reusable UI components. And this year, the Swift Package Manager is amplifying the ways you can create and build code with all new package plugins. Plugins are Swift packages you can add to your project as easily as any other dependency. They download and build automatically on a fresh checkout, except instead of being code in your app, they're code that helps build your app. Package plugins can be invoked from the command line or within Xcode, either as part of your build phase or on demand. They run in a sandbox environment, which prompts you for permission before reading or modifying your code. There are endless possibilities for extending your workflow with package plugins. You could use them to lint and format your code to match the team's style guide with packages like SwiftLint or SwiftFormat, or automatically generate source code at build time with tools like Sorcery. Anything that helps you get the job done.
Package plugins are a great way to extend Xcode just by writing a little Swift. And you can do that in 2 ways, with command plugins that you use on demand, and with build plugins for whenever your project builds. Now, back in our food truck app, here's the code for a command plugin I created.
Okay, let's just pause and talk about it. This is pretty cool. So this stuff is similar to what, let's say,
it reminds me of Sorcery, actually. So
Well,
the sorcery was code generation tool.
So
right?
sorcery, it's not just for that though. Sorcery is one of those things. So it's any build help, any development helpers. So
Right.
Ruby on Rails or Ruby with bundler has this grouping of gems. You can have like overall gems that are used for your whole project, or gems that are used only in development. And there's exactly that, like, oh, it's the dev stuff for like browser refresh plugin, and then I don't know, automatically run unit tests on each save of files library.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. They said that instead of the code being used in your app, it
Mhm.
is the code to help build your app.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is pretty good. I'm glad that they're like explicitly addressing that.
So what do you think the scope of this thing would be? Like one thing which I can say right now is the linting, the Swift lint framework. You know that we had to install the helper app, the Swift lint app in our Mac, and then have to run the Swift lint in our, while building the app. We have to write the script in the build dependencies to run that Swift linting, right? But now I guess we just need to right click on the project and just need to run the tool we want.
Well, as
Right.
you said, there are two ways, right? You either manually execute them and run them from terminal, or I guess by like clicking something in the UI, or they automatically happen on a trigger. And I guess from what we just heard, there's only one trigger for now is
Sorted in
build. Let's find it. There is only build phase trigger for now. I don't know if they'll add more. Let's see.
Done.
Easily see all the places in my at the top. Code just by writing a little Swift. And you can do that in two ways, with command plugins that you use on demand, and with build plugins for whenever your project builds. Now, back in our food truck app, here's the code for a command plugin I created. My team has a unique code aesthetic. We like our imports sorted in string length order, shortest to longest. And since package plugins are all about customization and control, we created a command plugin that uses Swift format to take care of that. It finds all the locally modified files, and then it sorts their imports. Now here's a file I've been editing, with some unsorted imports at the top. I'll use the command on the entire project. I can select any number of targets. I'll run it on everything. And I can review the plugin's code if I want. But I'm all set. I'll run the command. And then, just like that, the plugin goes to work on my files.
Okay, so yeah, this is one trigger, right? What we talked about.
Right.
Explicit triggering. So I guess one step ahead that they do from like other development environments, like the JavaScript environment also, and like Yarn or Node packages, they also have this grouping for like developer libraries, and the production code libraries are like used in your app. The one step ahead is the integration with the IDE, and they're like trying to flex that muscle. So remember they had this Xcode plugins announcement a few years ago, like, oh, you can now publish like Xcode plugins in App Store. I don't think it went anywhere because I have not seen many of them published and done, and installation and discovery was like nowhere. That's probably how they're trying to solve it now. So you instead, in your Swift package declaration manifest file, you declare those dev dependencies, so-called dev dependencies, right? And now they will integrate supposedly with IDE so that you run them like manually, for example.
Right. As far as I remember, they have barred the developers to integrate the plugins directly, the third-party plugins, because that would have break the signing of the apps.
Yes. Yeah.
And
so
may have injected the ghost code, what they call is ghost code, I guess. They have said that they will just inject the malicious code in the apps. So they just advise to not inject the third-party plugins. And this is the kind of the solution they gave now to, I think this is the legit way they have given us to integrate the plugins, right?
Yeah.
To make our own plugins like this. Yeah.
Okay. So let's see how the build phase trigger happens though.
It finds all of the locally modified source files, and then it sorts them in length order. With plugins, you can go beyond just formatting. You can generate source code, work with Git, even surface your own custom errors and warning. I have another plugin to make sure my code is well documented. It's a build plugin, and it's based on the open source SwiftLint package. So now when I build, I can easily see all the places in my code where I need to add documentation.
All right, so that's pretty nice that it even integrates with like error and warning system. Now I'm curious to look at the API of that. But I bet you that's like Xcode integration or something. There's probably like an Xcode framework or whatever that your plugin will use to do this.
Mhm.
And build plugins extend all the way to Xcode Cloud, where they run as part of every build. With Swift package plugins, my team and I can create our own commands, customize builds locally and in Xcode Cloud, and then share those plugins with others, all using the power of a few lines of Swift.
Okay, they're not going to say more, but that's a great start, and we'll see where that goes. I
Right.
also wish there was or will be one more trigger for file changes, not the build, but just the file change. Like I changed any code in my file, saved it, and then something happened, like analysis of the file, let's say, right? I don't want to do entire build for it because that might be expensive and time consuming, right? Like roughly speaking, things like finding dead code, right? I want that happen on every file change, and I would love to make a plugin like that, right? Or have someone else make the plugin.
But it still has to go through the build process again because you are changing the code anyways.
Yeah, I suppose. I wish it didn't. I know like other languages, like I play with TypeScript now. I think VS Studio Code, Visual Studio Code, they have something like that where it's like you save the file or it's a Webpacker, one of those things. And it will tell you like, oh, you have dead code. Well, now I think about it, maybe it does compile the whole thing to tell it to me, and it's just fast for me for now. But
I'm looking forward for that tool from you, that plugin from you to know the dead code.
No time. I was actually, speaking of which, quick side note, I was researching. There's already command line tools for that. And I'll be even happy with that. To just like analyze more manually and via manual trigger to just know, like, give me that answer of like, what's dead or not. But anyway, let's move on.
With Swift package plugins, my team and I can create our own commands, customize builds locally and in Xcode Cloud, and then share those plugins with others, all using the power of a few lines of Swift. And that's a quick look at the ways package plugins can level up your development workflow.
There has never been a better time to develop in Swift. Swift is the absolute best language for building apps across our devices. But a language is just part of what you need to build your best apps. You have to pair a language with a powerful user interface framework. And Eliza is going to tell you more.
A powerful UI framework provides abstractions that make it easy to describe your interface, to populate it with data, and to keep it up to date. It should scale well with complexity, and it should be designed for the platform you're targeting, giving you full access to the power of the device. Your UI framework should help you make your app feel familiar and intuitive. It should make it easy to create standard controls and native interaction patterns with options for advanced customization. And it needs to have an expressive API that allows you to quickly prototype your ideas and see the results across a range of devices. SwiftUI offers all this and more. Like Swift, SwiftUI is designed with strong opinions about the best way to build apps. It has a declarative syntax that's easy to read and write. You describe what your interface looks like instead of how to build it. And this leaves room for SwiftUI to provide intelligent defaults for each platform. SwiftUI automatically keeps your interface up to date with changes to the underlying data model, so your app's UI never ends up in an inconsistent state.
Okay,
SwiftUI handles all these details for you, so you can focus your time and energy on what makes your app unique. Writing a new UI framework is a huge undertaking. Since its introduction, we've been continually expanding SwiftUI's API coverage, guided by your feedback. This year, we've made it even easier to adopt SwiftUI incrementally in your existing apps, and we've made some exciting enhancements to its power and flexibility. Starting with app navigation. With SwiftUI, it has always been easy to create the common kinds of navigation hierarchies found in many apps. And this year, SwiftUI is expanding that support with an all-new navigation API. The new navigation API makes it easy to express the style of navigation that best fits the needs of your app. With robust programmatic control over the presentation of your app's views, you can easily save and restore selection and even replace the full contents of a navigation stack. This is really useful when handling important behaviors like setting the launch state of your app, managing transitions between size classes, and responding to deep links. Between size classes, important behavior really useful navigation interface found in many apps. And
then comment.
This year, SwiftUI is expanding that support with an all-new navigation API. The new navigation API makes it easy to express the style of navigation that best fits the needs.
Okay, so we'll cover this in another more extensive video about SwiftUI and the new navigation stuff in it, because there is a whole WWDC video about it. But yeah, that's another notable new thing. And they say it's an improvement, and it is. But the bar was already low. It was really bad, really crappy before. So this improvement is a little bit better, but it still sucks. And yeah, here it doesn't show it, but essentially you be able to choose if else, roughly speaking, on what other screen to navigate to. And this is the point to make that decision, but it's still all tied to UI and coupled to it. So it's not, useful.
Programmatic control over the presentation of your app's views, you can easily save and restore selection and even replace the full contents of a navigation stack. This is really useful when handling important behaviors like setting the launch state of your app, managing transitions between size classes, and responding to deep links. SwiftUI also has huge improvements when it comes to controlling the layout of your app's interface. The layout of many app interfaces can be described using SwiftUI's model of horizontal or vertical stacks of elements. And while this model works for many common layouts, sometimes you need something more flexible. This year, we're adding a new grid API, which makes it easier to lay out a set of views aligned across multiple rows and columns. And you can take your layouts even further with the all-new Custom Layout API. The Custom Layout API gives you the flexibility to build.
Yeah, if you wanted to do it with the UI kit, in UI kit using UI collection view, you have to write a lot of code to achieve the simplest flow layout, or the complex one, the radial layout. But now they have since provided the APIs to do that. We can easily achieve that thing using SwiftUI.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's just for SwiftUI. That's my understanding. So UI kit doesn't get any love. It still sucks, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Oh God, too bad. But anyway, let's move on.
Like the numbers, easier to adopt SwiftUI incrementally in your existing apps.
Okay, so that's another one.
With a special collection view cell that can host SwiftUI views. If you already have a collection view in your UIKit app, you can now write custom cells using SwiftUI's declarative syntax. These cells are tightly integrated with UIKit, supporting swipe actions, cell backgrounds, and all the other features of UI collection view.
Okay, so yeah, this is the new thing that I think is nice. As in cells of collections and table views, you can now actually set its content effectively, its content view, to be this UI hosting configuration, which is effectively a SwiftUI view. That's pretty nice. I see what they're doing. They're trying to like slowly, it's a gateway drug, right? They're like slowly giving you a little SwiftUI, feeding you a little SwiftUI. Oh, look, it's so nice to do it in your cells now in TableView, even though you have UIKit app. And I suppose I wish they did more though. I wish they did it to just normal, like UI view, just boom, plug and play in it is SwiftUI.
Right. And I also feel the same, that UIKit and SwiftUI should go hand in hand. And SwiftUI is not that mature framework which can just replace your UIKit framework all of a sudden. Right. We need both the frameworks right now.
Yeah. And in general, it shouldn't be, it's just a UI framework, right? So render the UI. That's it. Don't do anything else with it.
Yeah.
Like it shouldn't be. So if it renders,
so does the UIKit as well.
So does the UIKit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess like over the years, the problem with the UIKit was the view controller and it trying to do a little more. But all in all, though, it was actually pretty contained into the render in the UI, plus lifecycle events. I guess maybe that part was a little bit too much. But other than that, it's purely UI framework. SwiftUI seems to be doing more and more and more other things that it shouldn't be doing. But, oh well, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
These cells are tightly integrated with UIKit, supporting swipe actions, cell backgrounds, and all the other features of UI Collection View. SwiftUI continues to grow to offer many more types of interface elements, like half sheets, which define secondary views that slide above a main view. These are great to provide quick access to information on smaller.
Okay, well, so you're saying that this was already available for us, right? For
actually,
UIKit.
it was available in UIKit. So now they have made explicit for SwiftUI as well. So that's the new thing. Yeah.
Okay, so can you tell me, I don't know about this because I think it's like latest change, maybe within the last couple of years, and I'm still on older iOS version, right? So I don't get to use this stuff.
It's just 1 or 2 years back, they had introduced this thing. It actually takes a default height, which you can configure, and it provides you a mechanism to adjust the height of the sheet by just dragging it up or down. And you can also just dismiss it by tapping outside or just tapping on the cross button. Yeah.
So then is this a UI view controller really that you present? Or how does
in
that
UIKit, it was UI view controller. In SwiftUI, it must be a view.
Right. Oh, yeah, sure. So, okay, I guess I'm like now at this point, I'm curious not about the SwiftUI part of it because I don't care of it, but how it works in the UIKit. So is this the content of it is just a UI view and you can put anything in it? Or is it something predetermined that they want you to use?
Just treat it like a big view controller where you can add child controllers or views, anything.
See. Okay, that's nice. So it's basically what you and I implemented before, right? But by hand ourselves. Right. This is a replacement.
Right. That was made popular by Slack first, I guess. Right.
And Uber, I think they have similar sheets.
Yeah. Then everybody in the industry actually copied the stuff, and it was all over the place. And at the end, finally, Apple also made their own version like this.
Okay, I see. Makes sense. I gotcha. And now they tried it out with the UIKit. I see what they're doing, and then introduced it in SwiftUI a little later, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, so then let's get back to
wait, the share sheet is also remaining up just after that.
Is that important?
Not that important. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of important because the app which I made myself, Like it was a very small app, but the share functionality is a very common functionality. So every
But
app actually does.
this thing
Yeah.
was there for years.
This was there for years in UI kit, but when people
they just finally have it in SwiftUI. Is that why?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God. Wow. Big announcement, I suppose, for SwiftUI people who care. It's important. So essentially, it's exactly the same thing that we had before. It's just now available as a UI element for them.
Yeah, exactly. You could have done with the UI view representative as a protocol, right? You would have to conform to that protocol, and then you have to embed the UI kit native sheet in it, and then you could just present it. But there is one more gotcha in that the view, the share sheet made using that route was taking the full height of the screen. It was not just limiting to the number of options. For example, if you open a share sheet in your iPhone for any app which is made using UI kit, it will take only that much height which is required to show all the options. But the share sheet made using the UI kit was taking the full height. So that was one of the drawbacks people were facing. But now they have made it the same thing native using Swift UI as well. In Swift UI, that problem will be solved. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Makes more sense. Let's move now then, huh?
Yeah.
So, okay. So this is the charts.
I want you to call out a few more APIs. For example, there is a new API, view that fit. So what that API does is view that fit takes two kinds of stack, vertical stack and horizontal stack, but it will show only just one depending upon the view size. So if you are seeing that view in the iPad and it has more space, it will show you, let's say, the vertical stack. Okay. But if you are on an iPhone or the other way around, I guess. Yeah. So if you're on an iPhone, it will show you the horizontal stack. So view that fit is a very nice API, because otherwise you have to, in UI kit, you have to deal with the constraints depending upon what view you need to show.
Okay, so the whole iPad versus iPhone app is actually versus Mac app is a very debatable topic. Maybe it warrants its own conversation. For years, Apple's trying to make that point that, oh, you write it once and you just make it adaptable and it adapts and it's fine. But at some point, we tried to make an app. Well, it was a little different. Okay, never mind. So do you think that I realized the layout is so dramatically different between your iPhone app and your iPad because of the real estate? It's effectively two different apps from the perspective of layout and navigation. And I don't think you should be even trying to couple them together like this. Just make your code so decoupled from each other so that you just compose it together the way you want for the iPhone when you run it on iPhone, and then compose it together the way you want for the iPad when you run on iPad. And that's it. That's solved. Because then you introduce way more complexity and problems when you're trying to fit it all together in one thing that's adaptable.
Yeah, you are trying to make generic UI.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Which will definitely get break. At some point. Yeah.
Like look, what we're looking at right now. This is an iPad view that has a lot of real estate. I think probably if designers were making the same for an iPhone screen, this would be like this bottom table and the top chart. Maybe would be making it up, but probably would be in two screens, dedicated for the chart and dedicated for the table, right? Or something like that. So you would arrange your whole user navigation. I guess the problem with that layout in different iPads versus iPhones is the routing and navigating from one screen to another is now drastically different. It's just not solvable by something generic. Same for Mac. You have way more. It's like it's gonna be different. But yeah, I guess we get the charts now in SwiftUI. Well, so I don't care. Don't do SwiftUI. Plus, there are third-party solutions for charts already, so it's a solved problem. Why? Perhaps they did it. You know what? Now I think about it. Perhaps they did this because no one wants to build a chart, at least not yet, or have not done it yet, build a charting library for SwiftUI. So they're like, oh, we have to make this too, or something.
Or maybe it's an attempt to lure developers towards using the SwiftUI.
Maybe.
Hey, look,
right?
Look, we have new fancy APIs to do the.
Such a waste of resources. Like you could have had these engineers build anything else that's more useful and better for us. Like who cares? This is a very I guess like application specific for a very niche of finance apps, right? Well, mostly. Okay, well, fine, Apple, I guess. So look, like for example here, right? Speak just on the topic of layouts. They're not even taking advantage of it, of the iPad itself. So you have landscape, portrait mode right now. So you arrange, or maybe that's what they'll change actually. Let's see. Different orientation, right? Yeah. So here it's exactly the same thing. Even though you probably, since landscape has a wider space, right? Not portrait. You probably want to rearrange this UI some other way. So it takes advantage of wider screen now because you're holding it. Well, I don't know. It's just stretched. It's the same view, but stretched. So,
right.
Okay, so what's the point of like having it on the iPad? Oh yeah, that's just so she's gonna do it now, right? She's gonna wrap this.
Yeah, exactly. She'll gonna wrap this.
Well, let's see. View that fits. Okay. Okay, got it. Okay, makes sense. Well, I suppose. Navigation split view. Well, this is all iPad specific. I guess it is iOS. Apple Watch, don't care. Then lock screen, also don't really care, right? I mean, probably for us developers, there's some implication with like how you display notifications, right?
So that's the point where they are talking about the live activities API and the other APIs.
So what is that? Live activity thing?
The live activities API. So let me give you an example. Suppose you are booking an Uber and you want to check the status of your Uber when it is arriving where it is. So you just don't need to open the app or open your phone. On the lock screen itself, it will get updated. So it is 2 minutes away, it is 3 minutes away, it is arrived. So just on the lock screen. Yeah. So that's the live activity. Yeah.
I think this is why this is where that distributed actor or something might be useful if, again, supposedly it solves some problem there, where that activity is definitely going to be a different process. Just like your watch app or widgets or whatever, they're all different activity from your application. Or activity process.
Yeah, could be.
I see. Also not very, okay, I guess I'm not very excited. It is useful for us, but it's so rare for iOS/iPhone developers to make those.
But why? I mean, look, for example, let's take the example of the work order. For example, if it is getting updated in an in a day, for example, it is going from to in progress and in progress to done,
Mhm.
right? And I'm an admin of that company, and I want to track the work orders updates. I just need to check it on my lock screen. I just don't even need to open my phone,
That's true.
right?
Yeah, okay, I see that. I guess what I'm trying to say is that this type of features will be built like once a year, probably, and then you forget about it.
Yeah, every feature they come up with is just like that only. They don't receive many major updates from the developers itself. For example, they come up with the necessary shortcuts. So most of the
Oh,
people just
yes.
coded them just once and never touched them in their life, right? Because
Yeah,
it's just one time thing. So, but it will definitely improve the user experience.
that's true. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, the intent, like those SEER shortcuts weren't very usable, I guess, for the user. But then this is nice. You're right, because it opens up programmatic. Effectively, if you think about it, this is programmatic access to your app, which you could have had before via deep links or universal links, but it's kind of sort of it. You still open the app and its UI when you tap on a deep link, and then you
Right.
process it. And if you're like clever, right, and have like rich functionality around it based on the params of the deep link, you do various actions for your user, right? That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and then with the intents, it's more programmatic access, so you can run those actions. And I think they made a point somewhere there in the presentation that you can already use your existing like deep linking handling, for example, for it.
Yeah. So they actually are very clever, I think. So I don't know what the exact reason was, but I think to make the shortcuts available to the apps, the users have to make the shortcut themselves for the art. For example, if I want to access my Uber app through a shortcut, I would, as a user, I want to add a shortcut in my shortcuts list first, right? But now with the app intents, it will automatically create shortcuts into the shortcut app if you have written this app intent code. Okay.
Right.
And that's it. So basically, this app intents is replacing the original shortcuts that developers have made to access the app.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a one-time thing they have to do it, and all, not just this thing, but it is also providing a way in Xcode to migrate the old code of shortcuts to app intents.
I see.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, we'll see how it goes. I'll look at them shoving structs again into our face. I bet this can be a class because this is just a protocol and you don't. Oh, maybe not. Maybe they force you to have a struct. Who knows? But why? It's not a piece of data. All right. Anyway, different topic.
Well, it can, because the Swift UI also forces you to make the struct for making views. You can't have class of views.
Same problem, same logic. Why the hell? Those are not pieces of data, so they shouldn't be structs. But okay, so they're doing. I see. So this is like this series shortcut UI piece that shows.
You can also trigger them from Siri as well, and also
right.
from the shortcuts. Yeah.
I think I've heard someone said this WWDC was like Android people rolling their eyes and be like, "Oh, we had that already. We had that already on Android."
Yeah, I mean, this intent term is coined from Android, right?
Yeah, it's used for a different thing in there. It's more of your main process. Well, I guess it could be for other things too, actually. But yes, it's the term is from Android, but for a slightly different thing, I would say. Okay, so here they're talking about Face ID stuff, right?
And I personally love the live text API as well. So you can actually also copy the text from the video by just pausing it. Just like you can copy the text from the image, they introduced it last time. Now you can also copy the text from the video.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only new thing I found. And one more thing, you remember we made a QR code scanner ourselves using using the AV Foundation framework, and you know how complex it was. Although I mean complex in terms of the amount of code we had to write just to do one simple stuff. Now we can do that QR code very easily. Actually, they have made one data scanner API, and they have they have made a data scanner view controller, which you can directly use to scan the any type of codes. You can just pass, hey, I want to scan a barcode.
This thing, right?
Yeah, exactly this one. Yeah. See how easy it would be to just make a simple barcode scanner with this.
But then the reason we made our own too is because we want to have control over the UI and user experience of it, right? Does this have it? Probably not. Let's see.
Yeah, you are right.
Because it's back to the same problem. Like, sure, we could have used the built-in camera, right, to scan barcodes, but the user experience is not controlled. It's like this presented thing, right? And then it gets dismissed, and then we process it. Like, it's not the user experience we want. Let's see what they do here.
But it seems like that this is a UI kit addition, because it is coined like a view controller, so it seems like a UI kit addition, right?
Yeah. Well, okay. So yeah, you see what she just did.
Yeah.
She's okay. Well, I have to watch it again. So she's implementing some stuff, and look, they're still pushing this whole struct and UI representable right there, right? UI view controller representable. So they want you to embed this into the SwiftUI. And it's funny. So it seems like the innovation, like the new things, are easier to do with the UI kit, right? So they're first starting with it, building the UI kit version of it, and then they're trying to port or adapt to SwiftUI.
Well, that's a point to note, right? Since they are making some new things like chart library in SwiftUI,
I suppose, then
but
at the same time
they are doing this thing in the UI kit itself, the scanner thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then the layout and the grid thing, that's SwiftUI only, not for UI kit. It's interesting, isn't it?
Maybe because they don't want to keep out the kit developers from the usage of data scanner API.
Oh, the delegate. All right, yeah. So this is a normal way how it should be via the delegate, right? So you declare something, usually, well, in this case, they just delegate it to that coordinator. And here's that class, a proper normal class. Well, why do you do an S object? I don't know, but it's just a class which implements the protocol of the delegate. So you assign it. Makes sense. And then these are the callbacks. So that would be the scan callback. After the scanner instance actually, scanned it, and then it processed the result, and it gives you back either the text or the barcode, right? And there's, at least we see two types. Maybe there's more in this enum. So let's see what happens, because they'll show how it looks in the app. Okay, so she has just some view controller, some view. Then she taps on a button right there in the nav bar, and boom, you see it got the presented view controller. It's like so bare, right? There is nothing there. So I wonder if this is how this framework looks by default. Like that's the
you are
picker
right.
Scanner.
Yeah, you're right.
Or is this something that's actually by default they want you to customize? But I don't see any UI elements here. There's some preview over there, probably of what you're scanning, but everything else is just the viewport of the camera, right?
But I guess we can subclass this controller and have our own UI on it.
Maybe, although unlikely. Remember, you couldn't really subclass the camera
Right,
picker thing, right?
right. You can't subclass every view control provided by UI kit, right? Yeah.
So, well, let's see. But then the lack of UI controls, and look, here it's cut off, so it's not even optimized for that. It feels like they wouldn't let you have a picker out of the box like that. It's too bare, right? So like she scans it. I guess she had to tap it. Now she's back to her app with her custom view.
Right.
And she's still in that modelly presented view controller. So it's interesting. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it's meant to be customized by default. Then yes, you're right. Then what you and I implemented could be replaced with this, because that's probably better. That is something you would do way more than build widgets. Like widgets you would build once. This is, well, I guess depends on what kind of app you make.
And also they have exposed the weather APIs.
That was such a joke. Oh my God. Even worse than charts. Why?
But why? Like they have put up a limit on that, like 500,000 API calls per month. It's like a business for them. They like if people.
Yeah, but who cares? Who would buy that? All of those millions of weather apps out there. But did you ever pay for weather yourself? I never did.
I don't even use the weather app on the phone.
Hey, yeah. So I worked in oil, well, not now, but I worked in oil and gas for a little bit more than 6 years. And we always had like WeatherBug apps. I don't know if WeatherBug is free, but when guys are working outside, they need to pay particular attention to lightning strike warnings. And just because they don't want to be working in the area if there's lightning within a couple miles, depending on how connected a city is to information and internet and stuff like that, it might be free. But then if they're in a remote area, I feel like that's something that they might pay for, but I don't know how weather apps track lightning.
So these people made Apple made like an API that you would pay for.
Really?
For the weather. I'm still okay. Your use case is actually useful, I guess.
Is anyone using it?
Well, it just announced it, so I don't know. But I'm like, to me, it's like that's a joke. Like, look outside, weather, out of the window, free.
No.
Her use case makes sense to me. Yeah. So if someone is stuck in a remote area, then definitely,
yeah,
it's worth having it.
Okay, I still think it's just so funny though, for them to introduce this. But look at them converting into subscription business from hardware selling business, slowly but surely.
Yeah, if you find this laughable, how about if I tell you that they have also exposed the APIs to reverse geocode the coordinates? Like they have literally exposed these APIs. Like,
wait, what do you mean?
For example, if you give an address or latitude or longitude, it will convert it into an address. Or if you're given them an address,
okay, so that's useful. I think that's like my mind, like real estate stuff. If you have coordinates, it's so that gives you the address, right? Let's say you drive around and you want to know, okay, this house I'm looking at, you're like in the map. Well, I guess, I mean, you use Google Maps, so you will know. But I feel like, or you take a picture of something. The picture has an attached latitude, longitude. So to take those and convert it into address, it's pretty helpful for certain use cases. It's just the weather, though. Oh man, that's so funny. Like almighty huge Apple was, reduced to selling weather data about rain. I just can picture Steve Jobs rolling in his grave and be like, no. Okay. Paula says you should make a meme, and the meme is, the recession is coming when Apple's making weather API sells weather data.
Okay, so what's most hilarious, the Apple cloth or this weather API
What is this for?
or cleaning your
Oh
Apple
my
device?
God. What are you? Oh my God. Those little shops that make all of those little things for.
And it's worth $20. Can you believe?
Oh, right. Oh God. Yeah, this is even worse. Like even funnier. Swift Playground. Okay. So Xcode Cloud. I don't think they really show it much, right? They just show this stuff. So is it like out of beta now, effectively?
Yeah. It is out of beta.
Okay. REST API. I'm still curious how much of Build Buddy that they acquired, which was a fantastic cloud continuous integration thing for iOS apps. How much of it is in there now? I think a year ago or so, when I was saying that, one of the founders tweeted that, like, oh yeah, a lot of it is there. So okay, is this what you were saying?
Yeah.
25 hours per month for $15 a month. Interesting. I don't really know how much it compares to Circle CI and similar continuous integration solutions in terms of price. Yeah, I never paid it myself. I guess always worked for some company that already had it either in-house already or paid for it. So I don't know, is it too much or too little? Sounds like too much for just 5 hours.
Yeah. And remember, it's just not one developer who is working for a company. Yeah.
And technically you want to build every commit in your pull request, right? So, that's expensive. What if you reach? You and I together just working on a project will reach 1,000 hours pretty fast. To be honest.
Yeah.
And I wonder. Okay.
Oh wait, so it's free till 2023.
Yeah, and after that you pay.
Wow. Okay.
Well, look again, right? Hardware, they want to get away from hardware sales revenue into subscription-based revenue. This is, okay. I can see that from the business perspective. Basically, this is why they're hyping up SwiftUI. So here's my my hot take on this. Look, this is probably Tim Cook, the pencil pusher and spreadsheet pusher. This is how he thinks. All right, let me make the biggest app store platform possible, right? With which it is already the biggest, probably with the most apps of all other platforms. But let me hype it up even more by bringing a horde of JavaScript developers into my fold by giving them something familiar, such as SwiftUI, because they're already used to making their stuff that way. And then I'll have this army popping up apps for Mac, for iOS, for iPhone, for iPad, for everything on my platform. So I'll have like this even more, right? And now let's introduce Xcode Cloud and charge them for the hours of the execution time on it, because now they're going to be making way more apps for me, so they'll pay to me. So now the real customer is the developer, at least in this side of business, right? Which means my main goal right now, if I was Tim Cook, is to bring as many devs as possible. I don't need any Alexes or Sandeeps who actually think things through and make stuff efficient and write great apps. I just need volume, which means I need a horde of juniors. Makes a lot of sense. And then I can charge the horde of juniors for that, right? For them like for the continuous integration and stuff. Huh.
Mhm.
Huh. All right, Tim Cook. That's definitely going to bring sales, I think. Because, that's right. And another reason for that, specifically why they're like, oh, we got to go that way, because they're getting squeezed by regulation in like Europe and the US and other places probably, with the whole 30% cut from payments in the apps, right? They it eventually will go away. Writing is on the wall. It's just a matter of time. They'll get regulated away from charging that much, or if any fee at all, to be honest. And people will be allowed to use like Stripe and other third-party solutions for payments within their apps, which means their revenue will shrink on that, and they make a ton of money on it. So now they're shifting. Okay, if developers don't want to pay us this way by giving us a chunk of money of sales, let's make him pay through tools.
And
Makes
hopefully they will also bring back the charging brick.
Charging brick.
Yeah, so they have excluded the charging brick. If you buy any iPhone, they are not sending you the charging brick along with that. They are just sending you the charging wire, the charging cable. That's it.
Oh, right. Yes.
And they are getting penalized in some parts of the world for that.
So yeah, I think this is it. Well, I guess, but then net, there's benefits and downsides to us developers. So net, the benefit is that now they are sort of forced in a sense to make these tools for us and make them nice so that we pay for them, right? The developer tools. Great, which is like forcing function, right? But it's pricey today. Maybe now they'll have more competition and lower the price someday, but it's still good, even though pricey. The downside, the bad side, is that they now want volumes of people. And what I was saying, now they want a horde of SwiftUI JavaScript people in here, or X converts from JavaScript. That's the downside. So we'll have worse tooling there probably because of it. Well, we'll see. All right, guys, this was our raw, unfiltered reaction to WWDC Platform State of the Union. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed making it. We will be diving deeper into some of the topics, as we mentioned. We'll see you in the next show.
Like, subscribe, and hit that notification button so you never miss the show.